Hello, welcome back to our channel Qubit Educational Services. This video is in continuation with our previous video on the parameterization of curves. In this video, we are going to talk about the parameterization of surfaces. Before we start our discussion, let us go through the contents of this video. The first point that we are going to talk about is the parameterization of curves. For those who have already watched our video, this will be a revision for them. We will then talk about the possible extension of this idea to surfaces. We will also compare the ways to represent curves and the surfaces using the Cartesian coordinate system. One of the important motivations to study the surfaces and parametric surfaces specifically is the fact that in all the three theorems on vector integral calculus, the Green's theorem, the Stokes theorem, and the divergence theorem of Gauss, in all three of them, the surface integrals appear, and to evaluate the surface integrals, knowing the parameterization of surfaces is very much essential. So that is going to be our second point. Then we will jump into the main topic, wherein we will define certain terms. We will see some examples. Later we will move on to the application part, where we will develop the expression for the elementary area ds using parameterization. This will be very similar to what we did in finding lengths of the curves, that is rectification. In the last part, we will pick an example and we will find the surface area of the surface by the formula which we will derive in the section 4. Before we begin, we take a note of the fact that the parameterization of surfaces, just like curves, is more practical and provides greater flexibility in solving the problems, as well as the parameterization of surfaces is used in computer graphics. We will see an example of this in the latter part of our video. First, let us compare the curves and the surfaces. We have already seen that there are three ways to represent any curve. The first one is the explicit way, y equal to f of x. Second one is the implicit way, f of x comma y equal to 0. And the third one is the new addition in the list, that is using parametric form. Similarly, we also have three different ways to represent surfaces using equations. The explicit way is z equal to f of xy, or x equal to a function of y and z, or y equal to a function of x and z. We also have an implicit way to express a surface, which is f of x comma y comma z equal to 0. And we also have the parametric representation, which we are going to discuss very soon. Let us now see few examples of the curves as well as the surfaces in their respective forms. We consider the parabola y equal to x squared, which is in the explicit form y equal to f of x. Here we have a paraboloid z equal to x squared plus y squared. The simplest example of a curve having an implicit representation is the circle x squared plus y squared equal to a squared. And the obvious extension of a circle in 3 dimensions is sphere. So the sphere's equation is x squared plus y squared plus z squared equal to a squared. If we shift a squared, which exists on the right hand sides, to the left hand sides, then we will get the implicit equations f of x comma y equal to 0 and f of x comma y comma z equal to 0. Let's now talk about the parametric equation of a curve and that of a surface. You may get a hint that any curve being a one-dimensional entity has only one parameter in its definition. A surface being two-dimensional may or should have two parameters in its parametric representation. Now by one and two-dimensional, I mean the following. Curves only have lengths. They do not have areas or volumes. As opposed to that, surfaces have areas. And the dimension of surface area or area in general being L2, I said that a surface is a two-dimensional entity. Let us now go to this figure. In the first column, you can see the t-axis or the parameter axis, wherein I have highlighted the segment AB, which indicates that the range of the parameter t is from A to B. We know that the parametric representation of any curve is r bar equal to f of t I cap plus g of t j cap plus h of t k cap. In other words, for every value of t in its domain, which is the closed interval AB, there exists a point on the curve C in the space. So for t1, we may get a position vector r1 bar. For t2, we may get a position vector r2 bar, so on and so forth. We're going to extend this particular idea to surfaces. Surfaces being two-dimensional, we need two parameters to define its parametric equation. The convention is we choose the parameters to be u and v. So for curve, we had the t-axis. For surface, we have uv plane. For given curve, we identified the range of values of t, which essentially was on the t-axis. And for surface, we are going to have a closed region, let us call it capital R. If we now consider any one point in the region R, let's call it uj, vj, there will be a corresponding point on the surface in the space. In other words, the position vector r bar is now going to be a function of the parameters u and v. So we can define the surface as f of u, v I cap plus g of u, v j cap plus h of u, v k cap. That is to say, the x coordinate, the y coordinate and the z coordinate of any point on this particular surfaces will be a function of two parameters u and v. We'll now go to the connection between the three big theorems of the integral calculus and surfaces in general. Recall that the Green's theorem and the Stokes theorem tell us a relation between the line integral along the closed curve C and the surface integral evaluated over the surface S, which is bounded by the curve C. The divergence theorem of Gauss connects volume integral and the surface integral, wherein S is the closed surface which encloses the volume V. In short, be it the Green's theorem, Stokes theorem or divergence theorem and their applications, the surface integral is always involved, and that is the reason why we should study the surfaces and their parametric representations. A typical surface integral looks like this. F bar can be a given vector function or field, or in the case of Stokes theorem, it can even be curl of some other vector function g bar. The vector n cap ds is known as the elementary area vector which is defined to be normal or perpendicular to the elementary area ds. In some textbooks, the elementary area n cap ds is also denoted by ds bar. So ds bar and n cap ds essentially are one and the same thing. Did you now realize how important it is to study the surfaces? All the three theorems of vector integral calculus involve surface integrals which involve surfaces. And as we will see, the parametric representation of the surfaces is perhaps the best representation to evaluate such surface integrals. Having given the intuitive explanation that the parametric representation of any surface should involve two independent parameters u and v, let us now formally define it and also see the related terms. The set of all those points in the three-dimensional space whose position vectors are given by the following definition: r bar u comma v equal to f of u comma v I cap, so this is the x coordinate, plus g of u comma v j cap, which is the y coordinate, plus h of u comma v k cap, which is the z coordinate of the point, defines a surface in the three dimensions. As we do with any function, we will now talk about the domain and the range of the surface. We let the position vector r bar to be continuous over a region R in the UV plane. So what is R? R is a subset of the UV plane from which we are picking up the point u comma v, or the ordered pair u comma v. We are substituting the values of u and v in f, g and h, and we are getting the corresponding point on the surface. Secondly, we want the position vector r bar to be 1 to 1 on R, because we don't want r bar to cross itself. In other words, if we consider two different ordered pairs u1 v1 and u2 v2 and substitute the values in r bar, if we find that we are getting r1 bar equal to r2 bar, that is an indicator that for two different ordered pairs we are getting the same position vector r bar, which physically means the position vector r bar is crossing itself. We now define the range of the function r bar, which is the surface in the three dimensions traced by r bar. This is similar to range of a function, and as already told, u and v are known as the parameters and the region R is called as the parameter domain. In the language of linear algebra, a parametric surface is a mapping from the set of ordered pairs R2 to the set of ordered triples R3. So the column vector u comma v belongs to the domain, in our case the parameter domain, and the output x, y, z, which is the point in the three-dimensional space, belongs to the range of R. Let us now see an example wherein from the Cartesian equation of the surface we will find out its parametric representation. We are going to consider the paraboloid z equal to x squared plus y squared such that z is less than or equal to 4. This constraint implies that there exists no point on the surface of the paraboloid which has coordinates greater than 4. In this figure here, I have drawn the sketch of the paraboloid. The top circular surface which you can see here belongs to the plane z equal to 4, due to the condition z less than or equal to 4. For any surface, the position vector r bar is f of uv I cap plus g of uv j cap plus h of uv k cap. Let us now try to obtain the correct parametric representation of this surface. Presence of square of x plus square of y hints that we may be required to use the trigonometric functions sine and cos. But as x squared plus y squared is not a constant quantity, instead of directly substituting x as cos of some angle and y as sine of the same angle, we will also make sure that their amplitudes change. So the amplitude will now be the parameter u and the angle will now be the parameter v. So f of u comma v is u cos v and g of u comma v is u sin v. Let us now try to express z in terms of the parameters u and v. Z equal to x squared, so u squared cos squared v, plus y squared will be u squared sine squared v. Taking u squared common, we will get cos squared v plus sine squared v equal to 1. Therefore, z is equal to u squared. In other words, we have got the parametric representation of the surface, which is u cos of v I cap plus u sine of v j cap plus u squared k cap. We have still not yet specified the values which u and v can take. The condition z less than or equal to 4 is an indicator that the term u squared always lies between 0 and 4. Therefore, u lies between 0 and 2, as there is no point in taking the negative values of u. The permissible values for v will be between 0 and 2 pi. This will be clear if we go back to the paraboloid. Imagine a cross section of the paraboloid perpendicular to the z-axis. Let us consider z equal to 4 itself. Now if z is equal to 4, then u squared equals 4, which means u is equal to 2. Now go back to the relations between x, y and uv. If u is 2, then x is 2 cos v and y is 2 sin v. We are still on the plane z equal to 4, and the intersection of the paraboloid with the plane z equal to 4 is this circle. Recall that for parametric equations of any circle, we always vary the parameter from 0 to 2 pi so that we complete one full revolution. Therefore, the domain for the paraboloid under discussion is a rectangle in the uv plane bounded by the lines u equal to 0, u equal to 2, v equal to 0 and v equal to 2 pi. In this figure here, I have shown the parameter domain, which is going to be this rectangle whose boundaries are u equal to 0, which is the vertical line, u equal to 2, which is this line. Then we have v equal to 0, which is the u-axis, and the line v equal to 2 pi, which is the horizontal line here. So if you pick any point on this rectangle, it will have an image under the transformation r bar. It may be located somewhere here. If we cover the entire rectangle, then we will get the entire paraboloid in the three-dimensional space. There is another interesting thing which I want to tell you, which resembles the contours. Imagine that we pick a line inside this rectangle which is parallel to the v-axis. Let it be u equal to 1. Now if u equal to 1, then r bar is no longer a function of two parameters u and v, but is only a function of the parameter v. Secondly, if u is equal to 1, then z, which is u squared, will be equal to 1. What does the equation of the paraboloid tell us now? If z is equal to 1, then x squared plus y squared equal to 1. In other words, u equal to 1 gives us a circle which is a cross section of the paraboloid by the plane z equal to 1. In other words, if we let the parameter u to take a constant value between 0 and 2, we will go on getting concentric circles whose centers will lie on the z-axis. So by letting u equal to constant, we are getting a family of curves. In this case, family of circles. Let me now show some circles belonging to that family in this figure. So starting from origin, you will go on getting circles with increasing radii till you reach the plane z equal to 4, wherein the largest value of the radius will take place, and that will be equal to 2. Now what will we get if we let u to vary and let v to be a constant, if we do that, then we will get another family of curves. So we have now got two families. The first family was obtained by keeping u as a constant and allowing v to vary. The second family was obtained by letting v to be a constant and allowing u to take all its permissible values. These two families of curves are collectively called as the grid curves. And it is this technique of grid curves which a computer software uses to plot any three-dimensional surface. I'm going to present one more example of a parametric surface involving grid curves in the latter part of the video. So let us quickly summarize everything that we have discussed in this particular example. We were given an equation of paraboloid with the condition that z less than or equal to 4. We started off with the definition of the parametric surface as usual. Observing that we have addition of x squared and y squared, we thought of including the trigonometric functions sine and cos in the parametric equation. The second observation was that x squared plus y squared was not a constant, but sine squared v plus cos squared v is always equal to 1. So we decided to introduce another parameter which will serve as the multiple of sine and cos, and thereby we got x as a function of u and v and y as a function of u and v. We again went back to the equation of the paraboloid and expressed z as a function of u, in this case z equal to u squared. We then decided the domain of the parametric surface, which turned out to be a rectangle in the uv plane bounded by the v-axis, the u-axis and the lines u equal to 2 and v equal to 2 pi. In the last part we introduced ourselves to the concept of grid curves, wherein we allow one of the parameters to be a constant. We let the other parameter take all possible values from its domain. So we get two families of curves. First one by letting u as a constant and v to vary, and second by letting v to be a constant and letting u to vary. Let's continue to discuss the grid curves. As we saw in the example of paraboloid, if we let one of the parameters to be a constant, then we get two families of curves and we have called them the grid curves. These two families are u equal to constant and v equal to constant. In this figure here, the orange colored surface, which is a part of the UV plane, is the domain of the surface. Each point inside this domain is being mapped to the corresponding point in the three-dimensional space. So the blue surface here is the range. Let us pick one point inside the region. Let its coordinates be u0, v0. Can we say that this point is the point of intersection of two lines, u equal to u0 and v equal to v0? Yes, we can say that. Now let us see the image of this point in R3. It's this point here. As already discussed, if u takes the constant value u0, it gives us a curve which is one of the many grid curves. Let it be C1. Secondly, if we let v to be a constant, in this case v0, that is giving rise to yet another curve C2. In other words, every point on the surface in R3 can be considered as an intersection of two grid curves First one u equal to some constant, second one v equal to some constant. So for the curve C1, where we have assumed that the parameter u takes the constant value u0, we can say that r bar C1 is a function of v only. And for the curve C2, which is the grid curve for which v is a constant, r bar is a function of u only. So at this particular point, we can now draw two tangents. The first one to the curve C1 and the second one to the curve C2. So let us draw the tangents. Let's call them T1 bar and T2 bar respectively. From the theory of parametrization of curves, which we discussed in the previous video, the tangential direction T1 bar will be given by differentiating r bar with respect to v. Now I'm using the partial derivative symbol here because r bar in reality is a function of two variables. Similarly, the tangent vector T2 bar will be obtained by partially differentiating r bar with respect to u. These two tangent vectors, T1 bar and T2 bar, actually help us in finding the expression for the elementary surface area ds, which we are going to see in the later part of the video. But the key point here is that any point on the surface in the three dimensions can be considered to be the point of intersection of two grid curves. One of them will be u equal to constant and the second one will be v equal to constant. The other important thing to be noted is that if we partially differentiate r bar with respect to v and with respect to u, then we will get two tangents at the same point, one of them to the curve C1 and the other one to the curve C2, which are the grid curves which intersect at the point under discussion. We'll discuss another example to understand the concept of grid curves better. We define the surface parametrically as r bar equal to 2 plus sin v into cos u I cap plus 2 plus sin v into sin u j cap plus u plus cos v k cap. So in our case, x, which is f of u comma v, is 2 plus sin v into cos of u, y, which is g of u comma v, is 2 plus sin v into sin of u, and z is h of uv, which is u plus cos of v. So unlike the example of paraboloid where z was only a function of one parameter, here z is function of both u and v. Using any grapher software such as GeoGebra, you can actually plot this particular parametric surface and it looks something like this. Do you see these lines here? These lines are nothing but the grid curves. The grid curves u equal to constant are the circles and the grid curves v equal to constant are spirals. Now the grapher actually plots the grid curves first and then it produces the impression of the surface. The region which is occupied between two grid curves u equal to constant and v equal to constant, which I am highlighting in the pink color here, is often called as a patch, because the software actually patches this to give us the impression of a surface. To understand the grid curves better, you can pick examples from your engineering mathematics textbook and plot the parametric surfaces using any grapher that you know. In fact, you already know an example of grid curves. The latitudes and the longitudes which are imaginary circles on the surface of the earth are nothing but the grid curves. Having discussed the parametric representation of paraboloid and the grid curves, let us now try to do the same thing for the three standard surfaces, the right circular cylinder, the sphere and the cone, starting with the cylinder. We consider the following equation: x squared plus y squared equal to a squared, such that z lies between b and c. A representation of this cylinder is presented here. This particular plane is z equal to b and this plane here is z equal to c. If we had not constrained the values of z between b and c, then we would have got an infinitely long tube or infinitely long cylinder. Let us now obtain the parametric representation of this particular cylinder. The presence of x squared plus y squared indicates that we should make use of the trigonometric functions cos and sine. Unlike the paraboloid, we observe that x squared plus y squared is always a constant a. So we may parameterize x as a into cos of v, y as a into sine of v, and z being independent of x and y, we can say that z is equal to u. What will be the parameter domain? As z lies between b and c, u will also lie between b and c. And as any cross section of the right circular cylinder perpendicular to the z-axis here is a circle, v will lie between 0 and 2 pi. Therefore, r bar will be equal to a cos of v I cap plus a sine of v j cap plus u k cap. So in this case, x and y are functions of v only and z is a function of u only. Let's now go to sphere. We consider the standard sphere centered at origin whose radius is equal to a. So the equation will be x squared plus y squared plus z squared equal to a squared. We now make use of the spherical polar coordinate system, or spherical coordinates in short, to obtain a parametric representation of this sphere. We let the angles theta and phi to be the parameters. In the context of spherical coordinates, we have another parameter called r. But as for the sphere under discussion, r is a constant, the spherical coordinates will reduce themselves to a parametric representation of the sphere with the parameters theta and phi. Therefore, z, which is r cos theta, will now be a cos theta. X, which is r sin theta cos phi, will be a sin theta cos phi. And y, which is r sin theta sin phi, will now be a sin theta sin phi. You may replace the parameters theta and phi by u and v, but using theta and phi is also perfectly fine. Let us now write down the permissible values for theta and phi. For phi we will have 0 to 2 pi, and for theta we will have 0 and pi. If you are familiar with the spherical coordinates, then the ranges of the angles phi and theta should not be a difficult task for you. Therefore, r bar will be equal to a sin theta cos of phi I cap plus a sin theta sin phi j cap plus a cos theta k cap. This is the required parametric representation of the sphere. Don't forget to write the ranges for phi and theta in your final answer. Let's now go to cone. We consider the right circular cone z equal to root of x squared plus y squared with the values of z being restricted between 0 and h. The presence of x squared plus y squared again hints us that one of the parametric representations may involve the functions cos and sine. Second point, as it happened with the paraboloid, the sum of x squared and y squared is not a constant. So we must have another parameter which makes sure that x squared plus y squared is not a constant. So we can take x as u cos v and y as u sin v. Z will then become u because z is root of x squared plus y squared, which will be root of u squared cos squared v plus u squared sin squared v. Cos squared v plus sin squared v being 1, z must be equal to u. Therefore, the range of u will be from 0 to h and the range of v will be from 0 to 2 pi. As the cross section of this right circular cone is a circle when taken perpendicular to the z-axis. Therefore, the parametric representation will be u cos of v I cap plus u sin of v j cap plus u k cap. So in this section we have parametrically represented the three standard surfaces, which are the sphere, the cone and the cylinder. Let's now go to the last part of the video wherein we will obtain the expression for the elementary surface area ds. We are now set to obtain an expression for the elementary area ds using the parametric representation of the surface. For simplicity, we consider this rectangular domain in the UV plane, which is mapped to this particular smooth surface in R3. We pick one specific patch in the UV plane with one of its vertices being ui star and vj star. We denote the dimensions of this box by delta u and delta v. If we now consider the image of this pixel under the transformation r bar, then we will get the corresponding surface area on the surfaces, which is shown in the sky blue color here. Let the point ui star comma vj star be mapped to the point pij on the surface. Our next job is to find out the representation of this sky blue colored area using delta u, delta v, ui star and vj star. To do that, we recall the following. Any point pij on the parametrized surfaces can be considered as the point of intersection of two grid curves u equal to constant and v equal to constant. More importantly, if we differentiate r bar with respect to u and with respect to v, and if we evaluate these two partial derivatives at point pij, then we will get the tangents at point pij to the respective grid curves. We now approximate the area Sij as area of a parallelogram, and to do that we first determine the magnitudes of these two vectors. By using the linear approximation, we can say that the sides of these two parallelograms will be dabba r bar by dabba u times delta u and dabba r bar by dabba v times delta v. Now where did delta u and delta v come from? Delta u and delta v are nothing but the dimensions of the pixel with which we started. Having approximated the shaded blue area using a parallelogram, we can now use the fact that area of the parallelogram is the magnitude of the cross product of the vectors which denote its adjacent sides. So we can now say that area of parallelogram is equal to partial derivative of r bar with respect to u cross partial derivative of r bar with respect to v. We need to take its modulus, as in this case area is a scalar quantity, into the constants delta u and delta v. Note that we are still using an approximate representation of the curved surface area by the planar area of parallelogram. To get the differential area ds, we should allow delta u and delta v to tend to 0. And when we do that, we get the expression for ds as ds equals mod of partial derivative of r bar with respect to u cross partial derivative of r bar with respect to v du dv. And this is perhaps the most important formula in our entire video, which will be useful to you in finding the surface integrals very easily, especially when the surfaces are not flat. We will now solve an example with the help of this differential formula to find the surface area of a sphere. As stated already, we will now find the surface area of a sphere whose radius is a. Well, we already know the answer. The surface area of the sphere is 4 pi a squared square units. So we expect to get the same answer by using our current approach. We let the equation of the sphere to be x squared plus y squared plus z squared equal to a squared. And we will use the same parametric equations which we derived earlier in the video. X will be a sin theta cos phi, y will be a sin theta sin phi, and z will be a cos theta. To avoid confusion, I am replacing theta by u and phi by v. So x will now be a sin u cos v, y will be a sin u sin v, and z will be a cos u. Theta ranges from 0 to pi, so that will be the range of u now. Phi ranges from 0 to 2 pi, so that will be the range of v now. The formula for ds, which we derived in the previous section, was mod of partial derivative of r bar with respect to u cross partial derivative of r bar with respect to v into the differentials du dv. Let us first find out the cross product of the partial derivatives and then we will substitute it here. Therefore, ru bar cross rv bar equals. The determinant, first row will be ijk. In the second row, we will write down the components of partial derivative of r bar with respect to u, which are a cos u cos v, a cos u sin v, and for z we have minus a sin u. In the third row, we will write down the partial derivatives of r bar with respect to v, which are minus a sin u sin v, a sin u cos of v, and z is not a function of v, so this derivative will be 0. Equal to I cap into a cos u sin v into 0 minus a sin u into a sin u cos v. That will be a squared sin squared u cos of v minus j cap into a cos u cos v into 0 minus a sin u into minus a sin u sin v. So that will be minus a squared sin squared u sin v plus k cap into, we now have a cos u cos v into a sin u cos v, which will give us a squared sin u cos squared v minus a cos u sin v into minus a sin u sin v. Minus into minus will be plus. So we have a squared sin u cos u sin squared v. If you add these two things, sin squared v plus cos squared v will be 1, and therefore the last term will be a squared sin u cos u equal to a squared common I cap into sin squared u cos v plus j cap into sin squared u sin v plus k cap into sin u cos u. Don't forget that we want the mod of this cross product, so that will be our next step. Therefore, mod of ru bar cross rv bar will be equal to a squared into mod of this vector, which will be root of square of this, which will be sin 4u cos squared v plus sin 4u sin squared v plus sin squared u cos squared u equal to a squared into, let us take sin raised to 2u common from all the terms. So we will have sin u outside the root into root of sin squared u cos squared v plus sin squared u sin squared v, and the last term will be cos squared u equal to a squared sin u into root of. Now from the first two terms, if we take sin squared u common, then we will get cos squared v plus sin squared v, which is 1. So we will have sin squared u plus the last term cos squared u, but again this is 1. So the cross product will be equal to a squared sin u. For those who remember Jacobians, to transform dx dy dz into the corresponding spherical polar coordinates, we use r squared sin theta dr d theta d phi. And it is the same expression here that we have got, a squared sin u, which is the Jacobian r squared sin theta, but in our case the radius r was a constant. Continuing with our problem, we have now got mod of ru bar cross rv bar. We have du dv, and this is ds. So if we integrate both sides, then we will get the surface area of the sphere. Because if we take the integrand as 1, if ds denotes the elementary surface area, its integral will give us the surface area. So our next job is to integrate mod of ru bar cross rv bar with respect to u and v. So it will be a double integral. S, let it be the surface area, a squared sine u du dv. Let us now write down the limits on u and v, which are 0 to pi and 0 to 2 pi respectively. 0 to pi, 0 to 2 pi. A squared is a constant, let it come outside. The integrand does not contain v, so its integral will be 1. Substituting the limits gives us 2 pi. Integral of sine u is minus cos u. Limits are 0 and pi. So it is 2 pi a squared into, let this minus sign come outside, cos of pi minus 1 minus cos of 0 1. Minus 1 into minus 1 is minus 2. Minus 2 into minus 1 will be plus 2. And there is our answer, 4 pi a squared square units. So we successfully obtained the surface area of the sphere of radius a by using its parametric representation in terms of the parameters u and v, which lied between 0 and pi and 0 and 2 pi respectively. We used the differential ds, which is the elementary surface area. We did the necessary calculations. We took the integrand as 1 here to calculate the surface area, and ultimately we reached our destination, 4 pi a squared. So that concludes our discussion on parametrization of surfaces. You will get a better understanding of this topic as well as parametrization of curves when you solve more and more problems on the Green's, Stokes and the divergence theorem of Gauss, because these three theorems actually involve the line integrals and the surface integrals. You may watch our videos on these three theorems, wherein we actually apply all the things that we studied in parametric curves and parametric surfaces to evaluate the corresponding integrals. The links to these videos can be obtained in the description of the video.